Hello. uh, I don't really know how to start this video, so I'm just gonna jump right in. My name is Alyssa, and I read books, so you don't have to. This book that this video is about is called Alpha Ruined by Liliana Carlisle. And I just want to start off by saying a couple of things. Firstly, I know nothing about the Omegaverse. This was literally my introduction into it. So if I got something wrong, feel free to correct me. Um, I know I probably got a couple things wrong. I was even confused. But yeah, correct me if I got something wrong. Second, no hate to the author. She's out here, she's doing her thing, she's doing what she loves. That's great. Congratulations. I just hated this book. I just hated this book. Beginning, middle, end, I hated it. Third, if you say anything about my mic quality, I will find you and I will strangle you. So with that out of the way, we're just gonna jump right into the book. We start off with our female main character. Her name is Bree. She is a 26-year-old journalist in a small town called Holden. She is an Omega, and she is a vegetarian, which she has stated in this book an unneeded, unnecessary amount of times. But we have to know that she is a vegetarian. She has this complex about her mom where she just calls her mom by her first name, Carol, which I think is really weird. It's not really explained in detail either. Like, if you're skimming the book, you wouldn't know why. It is also heavily implied at the beginning of the book that she has self harm scars, which by the end seem to be a little bit romanticized. Which, why are we romanticizing self harm? Maybe that's a thing that we shouldn't be doing. Cool. So we're introduced to Bree, and then we start off right off the bat with plot. An alpha man named Eric Hart has escaped from a prison in a town about an hour away called Greenwoods. He's supposedly kidnapped his Omega social worker named Ellie. Now, Bree thinks that there is a lot more to the story than what's being reported, and I also discovered that this Alpha and Omega are from the book before this. I don't know it. I don't think it's a series. It's just like a nice little cameo. I think. I don't know, but I figured that out, and I thought I was really smart. Um, so Bree thinks that there's more to this story, so she sets up an interview with Eric's psychologist, um, without talking to her boss first, without being like, "Hey, boss man, I want to do a story about this Alpha and Omega." No, she just emails Eric's psychologist and is like, "Hey, I want to do an interview with you. Can we meet?" It is only when the psychologist says, "Yeah, sure, why not?" Then she tells her boss that she plans to do this story. And her boss is really hesitant about it at first because she is a young girl going to a town, a young Omega girl going to a town where another young Omega girl was supposedly kidnapped and she's going alone. Which, yeah, that makes sense. I would also fear for her, but she doesn't seem scared and she throws a little tantrum. And she goes, "Well, I'm going whether you like it or not." And he's like, "Okay, fine, whatever, I'm not your dad." And that's the end of that. So after work, Bree goes to her mom's house, Carol, and basically has the exact same conversation that she had with her boss. And she's like, "Hey, I'm going to Greenwoods to have an interview with the psychologist." And her mom was like, "No, you're not. That's really dangerous." And she goes, "Yeah, you can't tell me what to do. I'm an adult." And her mom basically is just like, "Fine, whatever, go." Bree leaves her mom's house and she packs for her trip. And this is where I learned about Omega Heat. I had no idea what it was. I had to ask a friend what it was. Uh, Basically, what I got from that is it's basically like animal heat, where they just get really horny. Um, but apparently, Bree's heat smells like peaches and lilies, which is an interesting little tidbit. Um, didn't know a heat could smell like something. That's kind of gross. So she gets to the cabin that she rented in Greenwood, and it's just beautiful. Uh, there is way too much description about this cabin in the book. I think it's something like 5 pages of description. It could have just been because it was on my Kindle, but also like that's a little bit too much. Her mom texts her to apologize for being a bitch, and Bree feels kind of guilty. Like, yeah, you should feel guilty because why is your mom apologizing for being a bitch when you were the bitch? Make it make sense. So then that night, she meets her neighbor, Eugene. He is the town drunk. He asks her about a woman named Helen, and then stumbles off into the night. So far, he is really creepy, but he seems to be harmless. Um, she goes to bed. The next morning, she wakes up. She heads straight to the Greenwoods Cafe, where she meets a barista named Darlene, and immediately she susses out that Darlene is an Omega by her scent, which is a weird concept to me. I don't know. I've never read Omegaverse before, and this was really weird to me. They have a really tense conversation about why Bree is there, which makes sense because Darlene is just a girl in this town where a tragic thing happened, and there's all these reporters coming, and all of these maybe police coming and asking questions and like disturbing their peace. And now another reporter is coming, and she wants to report on the same story, and so she's kind of like exhausted at this point. Um, After their conversation, Bree goes to sit down, and Darlene brings her a green tea with honey and apologizes for being a bitch. Why are these people apologizing to Bree for being in the right? Why? Anyways, so then Bree decides that she wants to drive by the prison. She's just going to drive by. She's just going to look at it. Apparently, it's been abandoned since Eric ran off with Ellie, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Um, I mean, you'd think that if a prisoner escaped, the prison would still be up and running. Like, they wouldn't just shut down the whole prison just because one guy got out. So she drives by, and then she decides, I'm just going to go in. I'm 5 minutes. I'm going to go in for 5 minutes and trespasses on government property. There's a lot of breaking and entering and trespassing in this book. I don't know why. She walks down to where Eric might have been held. Apparently, this jail is separated by Alpha and Omega. Maybe because people are gonna like start mating or like get hurt, or I don't know. This is when our male main character shows up. He is absolutely stunning, dressed to the nines in this abandoned prison. He terrifies poor Bree, and this is the first time that Bree has a rational thought, and she gets the hell out of there because this man terrifies her because he apparently smells like what she dreams her alpha would smell like. I don't know if I like the smell thing. I don't know. Um, so we come to find out, we switch to the male main character's point of view. We find out his name is Cole, and immediately in his point of view, Cole calls Bree his Omega. Ew. Um, that POV chapter is only like 2 pages long, so there wasn't really much to talk about in there. So then we go back to Bree. Bree naps. Then she gets a call about her mom. Or she gets a call from her mom. And her mom basically says, like, hey, in the next town over, there was a couple of murders. Just be safe. Love you. And Bree's like, oh, Mom, I'm fine, and hangs up on her mom. Your mom's just trying to keep you safe, bestie. I don't know what's going on there. Um, she goes back to the cafe and she orders a veggie panini and another green tea with honey. Um, and then Eugene shows up, her drunk neighbor. Um, and this is where we discover that he may or may not have killed his wife, and nobody seems to care. He's just walking around a murderer. Okay, cool. Suddenly Cole's there. This is a theme with Cole where he just pops up out of nowhere, like materializes out of thin air. It's a thing. Like every time Cole shows up. He and Eugene get into a verbal dispute that ends with Eugene just storming off. Cole asks Bree on a date for tomorrow night, and she's a little bit hesitant because, yeah, you just met this guy this morning. He accosted you in a jail, and you ran away from him, and now he's asking you on a date. Once again, I have to applaud her momentary lapse in stupidity. Except now Cole basically manipulates her into saying yes, and then he takes her phone from her and puts his phone number on it. And then we later learn that he didn't just put his phone number in Bree's phone, he put a tracker on it so he could track her location, which is how he ends up materializing out of nowhere every single time. He walks her back to her car, and now we're getting some insight into Cole's character. We learn that he runs quote unquote errands from time to time, and I'm going to give you 3 seconds to guess what this alpha male main character in a trash book does for his errands, okay? Did you guess murder? Because you would be right. You would be right. He murders people. He goes from the cafe straight to this abandoned barn, about an hour out of town, where he has another man hog-tied and buried under the dirt in a plastic shipping container. Why? The only thing we know about this man is he is an alpha and his name is Charles. And then we find out that Charles, this mysterious hog-tied man, has allegedly killed another person. So Cole is a vigilante killer, which is great because we didn't have enough of those ever. Then we learn that Cole is a little freak who got aroused from drinking Bree's tea because he made sure to put his lips, when he drank Bree's tea at the cafe, he made sure to put his lips where Bree's lips were. And he got aroused from that because he's a little freak. He decides he can't wait until tomorrow to see Bree, so he breaks into her cabin while she is sleeping. He goes through her fridge, he goes through her things, starts messing around with her stuff, basically invading her privacy. She just had a shower before she went to bed, so she has a damp towel in the bathroom. So he goes to the bathroom and he suckles on it like a starved kitten. Okay? This is disgusting. And then it gets weirder. He goes over to where she is sleeping and rubs one out right in front of her sleeping body. Like, is that not, like, assault? I think it is. But yeah, I could be wrong. I'm just a girl. Anyways, Bree wakes up the next morning, finds artisan cheeses in her fridge because Cole put those there because apparently she didn't have enough food in her fridge. So she wakes up, suddenly regrets saying yes to her date with Cole, which good for her. Yeah. So she texts him to cancel the date and then blocks his number. She discovers the cheese, and then Darlene invites her over for lunch. They talk about so many things, but also literally nothing at all. It's basically just a gossip sesh. And Bree gets back to her cabin that evening. So they were there. She was there from like lunchtime to dinner time. She's a little bit tipsy from all the wine that they drank. Cole shows up to her cabin and she's rightfully freaked out because how does he know where she lives or is where she is staying for the duration of her stay? How does he know that? Unfortunately, she is once again manipulated by Cole. And I learned about alpha influence because apparently that's a thing, and he can use his magical alpha powers to manipulate her into going on this date. Didn't know that was a thing. So the date starts off really rocky. They go to this restaurant, and Bree just basically starts yelling at him from the beginning. But then they kind of get talking, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I like my job as a journalist, blah blah blah." But it ultimately ends up fine. Then they go back to Bree's cabin where they start making out. Then Bree's sleeves right up, and she is like, "Oh my god, Cole's gonna see my scars. Oh no!" So she pushes him away. She starts freaking out. She's like, "Get out of here! Get out of here! I don't want to see you. Go away! Go!" Because apparently, um, she is scared that he's gonna think that she's disgusting for her scars. So she pushes him away, leaves him outside, confused because what? They were just making out. Cole then goes to kill another man, then drives back to Bree's cabin while she's sleeping and goes and lays under her bed while she's sleeping. I just want to, I just want to grab him by the throat and just like, you know, just shake him. So Bree wakes up the next morning to an email from the psychiatrist asking if he can move the interview to next week. And then the property manager emails her and says she can stay as long as she'd like. I have a feeling that Cole had something to do with all of this, like the psychiatrist moving his appointment or his interview, and then the cabin manager saying, "Oh yeah, you can stay as long as you like." Cole definitely had something to do with that, but it's never ever confirmed. It might have been, and I just didn't notice because I hated this book, but I don't think it was ever mentioned. Um, so Bree calls her boss and lets her know about the change in plans, and he's weirdly chill about it after freaking out when she first told him. Then she goes to an antique store with Darlene, and they talk about the date. She tells Darlene that she won't be reckless and wander off anywhere. She won't do anything because there's been another murder uh, out of town. And Bree's like, "Oh yeah, I won't do anything stupid. Don't worry about me. I'll be safe." Surprise, surprise. She goes for a walk. But she's stopped in her driveway by Eugene, who is once again drunk. He gets a little aggressive with her, like verbally aggressive. He starts yelling at her, hurling insults at her, but he doesn't hurt her at all. Shaken, she heads for the cemetery because she's always liked cemeteries. She cries on a bench, and then Cole once again materializes out of nowhere and comforts her. He holds her and he tells her, or she tells him, the story of how she got her scars, um, which basically boils down to her dad died and she didn't want to live with her mom anymore. And so she booked a hotel and tried to get it over with. Then they make out on the bench in the cemetery. In the cemetery, they just start making out and humping. They go back to Bree's cabin and they start humping again, like 4 times. What about the cemetery turned you on? Was it all the dead people, Cole? So Bree and Cole don't see each other for 3 days because he's apparently working. We find out he's a lawyer, so he has all these. That's why he's in Greenwood. Apparently, is for work. On the third day, she goes over to Darlene's house, where they once again talk about everything and nothing. Another gossip sesh. Then Kyle, Darlene's alpha, tells them about an abandoned cabin that Ellie was staying in while she worked on Eric's case. Bree is instantly interested because she doesn't have a rational thought ever in her brain. Maybe once, and it's like bouncing around in there like the DVD screen, and every time it hits a corner, oh right, rational thought. She leaves almost immediately to go to this abandoned cabin. Once again, breaking and entering. And then Cole, again, materializes out of nowhere because he has a tracker on her phone and he can see where she is. They do the do. They start humping again in this dirty, gross cabin. I'm skipping over a whole lot because it's literally just humping. Just humping for like 2 days. A couple of days later, they're hanging out with Darlene and Kyle, and Bree lets it slip that she had a run-in with Eugene the day that she went to the cemetery. And Cole is angry, because I guess he thinks that he should be protecting her 24/7. I mean, good for her if that's what you're into, but like she's an independent lady. She's been independent for 26 years. I think she can be independent for another day. Um, they do the do again as soon as they get back to Bree's cabin, and she passes out from finishing too much. Okay. Her heat comes, and they do it many more times. I feel like we've lost the plot. I kind of feel like we've lost the plot just a little bit. So her heat lasts a couple of days. Cole leaves when her heat is over. He tells her he'll be right back. He just has some work to attend to. He leaves his jacket and she starts like playing with it or whatever. And her underwear falls out of the pocket. Why do you have her underwear, Cole? That's kind of gross. So she rightfully starts freaking out. And she goes to text Darlene, but she gets a notification that an app needs an update. And she discovers the tracker because she doesn't know what this app is, so she goes to go look at it. She can't delete the tracker without a password, which I didn't know that was a thing. It could be a thing. I don't know. I'm not technologically savvy. She can't delete it without a password, and she doesn't know the password, so she starts freaking out even more and packs her things up. She decides, I'm just going to leave as soon as this interview today is done, because the interview is today. So she's like, I'm just going to leave as soon as this interview today is done, and I'm never going to see Cole ever again. So she goes to the interview, and the doctor basically only says that he believes Ellie went with Eric of her own volition, and he fully believes that they were in love, and he wishes them the very best, which is kind of cute, but also like kind of weird. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It just feels weird. So she drives back to her cabin to double check if she's packed everything up, where she comes face to face with Eugene with a shotgun. Um, so far, Eugene has been nothing but just like harmless hurling insults, but now suddenly he has a shotgun. Okay, guys. She tries to plead for her life, and Cole once again shows up out of nowhere. And Eugene reveals that Cole has been doing the murders recently. And Cole neither confirms nor denies, and then tells Bree, go up to your room, I'm gonna deal with this guy. And Eugene is like, no, don't leave, he's gonna kill me, because I know that I'm next on his list because I killed my wife, blah, blah, blah. She goes upstairs, and she basically disassociates while Cole takes Eugene's shotgun and shoots him. And so she's like dissociating, she's like out, like gone, she doesn't want to be here anymore, she's just gone. And then Cole bites her mating gland, which I guess is like a really important thing. He does this to break her out of her disassociation. and she's furious because this mating gland is a really important thing, and only your mate is can bite it because it's like sacred, I guess. I don't know. But she's furious. But then she falls asleep because she's exhausted. When she wakes up, they get into a huge fight, which ultimately ends with her leaving Greenwoods and going back home. Cole follows her and just kind of stalks her until a couple weeks later, I guess. She goes to her mom's house for dinner and Cole is there. They get freaky in her childhood bedroom, and then she suddenly forgives him and he brings her to his house, which is now their house, which is close to her mom's house. Um, Cole jump scare. This is basically where the book ends. I skipped over so much, like, oh my god. So I skipped over, like, so much, like, humping and just fluff because the plot, we got great plot in the beginning. Middle was just sex, guys. Just sex. It was like this book was an excuse to write shitty porn. The end was okay. I don't like how Brie instantly forgave him because it. I don't really understand Omegaverse stuff, but I know that the mating gland thing is like a huge important part of like your mate and stuff. And him biting it just to break her out of her disassociation, like he could have done anything else. He could have like, I don't know, slapped her or something. I don't think she should have forgiven him. But I guess because he bit it, they were like bonded now and she like couldn't keep hating him. Like it was hurting her to hate him. I don't know. I didn't like this book at all. if I Why are we straigifying the Omegaverse? Like I know I don't know anything about the Omegaverse, but I'm pretty sure that this is an LGBTQ thing, so why are we stratifying it? And why are we romanticizing self harm? And why are we romanticizing murder? I don't know. I didn't like this book at all. If you liked this video, please like it, send it to your friends, subscribe. I don't know. I don't know. Um, I plan on making more of these. I read blank so you don't have to. It's hard to find these books because my algorithm is not there yet, but I'm sure it will be. Um, yeah, like, send to your friends. Be nice to me. Okay, bye.